So welcome to another edition of the Charleston Leadership Interviews. My name is Meg White, and I am a senior consultant at Delta Think and also a director of the Charleston Conference. And today we are delighted. We'll be talking with Judy Versus, who is the president of Academic and Government Markets at Elsevier. Judy, welcome. And thanks. You look very festive today, so we appreciate that. We're talking here in the middle of the holidays here in December. So we're so glad that you were able to share some of your time with us today.
Thank you for asking me, Meg. I appreciate it.
Great. So, Judy, so many things to talk about in the ever-changing world of scholarly information, but I'd like to start. This is really designed to talk a little bit more about you and share a little bit more about you with the audience. So we'll talk about professional things too, or we'll talk about personal things too, but I'd like to talk specifically about you and your professional history. You've got a fairly diverse background versus perhaps some of the other folks in roles like yours in the industry. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you landed at one of the oldest, and I'm going to use the air quotes, but most traditional publishing houses in the world?
Yeah, and we'll have some fun talking about the air quotes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so no, my journey's kind of an interesting one because I spent 8 years in ed tech before I ended up in the scholarly publishing world with Wiley. And I was with Wiley for 5 years, responsible for the research, publishing, and platforms business. So the cool thing for me, I mean, with having come from the industry, the competitor before, I had incredible respect for Elsevier as a company. Of course, they're number one in the space, but I always just respect in terms of not only the quality of content, but the incredible asset base on the data and analytics side. And I was very fortunate. As we talk about this industry, you end up working tightly together. And I had the opportunity to meet Kumsal, work with her, work with others from Elsevier. I was just incredibly impressed with the quality of the people, the culture, the passion around customers, and also the passion around things that are so important to me, like inclusivity and diversity. So it was just, it turned out to be a very natural move, leveraging ed tech background because of the data and analytics side, obviously the journal side, having been at Wiley, and then always very focused on innovation and how you drive to the future. And it's just a kind of a perfect combination of all of that coming together. The interesting part where I really wanted to, with your comment on traditional, because it's interesting when I think about traditional. I mean, Elsevier has incredible history of the content. I mean, the Lancet, we just celebrated our 200th anniversary, which is beyond comprehension to me. I feel young when we talk about the Lancet, but the really interesting part where I say tradition makes me not think of Elsevier, because it's a company that's so innovation focused and so focused on the data and analytics side and leveraging incredible quality, trusted content and analytics on top of that to take knowledge to the next level. So to me, all that is really exciting.
Well, and increasingly, and I have spent a long career in scholarly publishing as well. The technology component, it just takes all of what we have perhaps looked at as traditional and opens up and unlocks so many possibilities and potential. It's really incredible what that next gen is going to look like and how it's going to speed innovation. I mean, when you carry it out, to its logical conclusion there. So, and I love the ed tech background is so fascinating because, we focus so much on the research and analytics side, as you've said, but the education side of the business and really in terms of leveling the field from a diversity, equity, inclusion standpoint on that side as well, but also just improving outcomes across the board for all students. I think it's a really fascinating time on the education side, as well as the more, what we look through the STM lens on the research side. So
it's a great marriage having those two together. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it gives you, I would assume, as you mentioned, just a unique perspective. So you attended the conference this year. Was it your first time?
It was my first time, and it will not be my last time. I was so impressed, and the reason I was so impressed, because I think so much valuable stuff happens when you engage in dialogue, and lots of times when you engage and dialogue outside of a formal, like being in a librarian, at an institution, or having librarians or customers at Elsevier. It's separate. And so to me, those connections and those conversations are incredibly powerful. And then to me, the other thing which I absolutely loved is the setup of Charleston and all the different sessions, which were all very conversational in format with different points of view and perspective. And I find that incredibly powerful, because to me, that is how we all learn and grow. And as a company that's totally focused on enabling researchers and librarians, to be able to have those conversations in terms of, what do you need us to do to take it to the next level? What are those unmet needs? I mean, it's just, again, a huge fan. It was exceptional.
Well, and it's great that you were able to attend in person, and thanks for all those kind words. It really is amazing when you think about the history of the conference, because that's really how it started, was conversations, right? It was a serials acquisitions conference, and it was all about conversations and all stakeholders in one place together. And that to me is the amazing thing. It's however many years on, and so many changes actually this year for the conference in terms of Katina and stepping aside. It's still that. I love to hear a first-time attendee, and that's the impression you got. I think probably our conference directors, and certainly Katina, would be pleased to hear that that's the legacy of her passion in and building the conference. So thanks for that, and so interesting.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, conversations, Meg, are so powerful. And I always say all of us need to be in the conversation business, because that's how you learn. You learn through hearing what's on other people's minds, what their opinions are. And that helps you connect dots and figure out, well, what impact can I have? And lots of times you find your perception changes from engaged conversations. So it was real positive.
Great to hear, and maybe perhaps even welcome where we are in the broader world today, that constructive kind of dialogue. So we'll leave that at that. So your keynote, you actually delivered a keynote address at Charleston. You talked about co-opetition. Maybe for those that weren't able to see your keynote or watch it on video, can you expand on that term? What did you mean, and why is this so important right now in scholarly communication?
Yeah, and the reason I use the word co-opetition, and I'll start with, this ecosystem is so interconnected between the researchers, institutions, obviously librarians, funders, governments, publishers, societies, but, all interconnected, but that center part is the researcher. And in order to enable the efficacy of the researcher, it is so critically important that we all work tightly together. And I'll give you a great example. So if you think of, front and center right now is research integrity, with everything that's gone on with paper mills and bad actors that are out there. That is an area where publishers and societies coming together can solve the problems and get on top of it much quicker. So that cooperation is absolutely critical. Same thing when we look at, there is an initiative, and matter of fact, it was back in before Elsevier days. Elsevier was a big part of it, of Get FTR, full text research. Again, all about enabling the researcher so they can be as effective as possible, with the clear understanding that we can do it better together. So that's the cooperation part. But I'm also a huge fan of competition, because let's face it, and this is the analogy that I used during the keynote. When you're in a race, if you're a runner, you want to run in a race with the absolute best runners, because then you will deliver your best time. And that's why this competition part is so important, because it always makes us drive and push and innovate, so we can do a better job on behalf of our customers. So that's where that term basically came from. Yeah.
I love that. And that concept of raising the bar for everyone, with the goal being better support for that researcher as the center hub. How can we best support and enable innovation? That's, no matter where you are, I think that's a great point. As a stakeholder, I think everyone could agree that that's fundamental to their mission, right? Regardless of what position they are when they start the race.
Yeah, Absolutely. And I can't emphasize enough, Meg, the research integrity side and how critically important confidence in research and the knowledge that out there is. And especially as you start thinking of a Gen AI world with hallucinations and all that, it's going to become more and more important. And again, these are areas where we could work so closely together to make sure to keep those paper mills out and bad actors out to our absolute best of our ability. And I sit on the STM board, and we're working on that collectively too as an industry.
And that's fantastic and critically important. So thanks for that. And thanks for participating down at Charleston and you know, as a first-time attendee and a keynoter. Glad to hear that you'll be back. So building on that topic, you mentioned artificial intelligence. Elsevier recently launched Scopus AI. Can you talk a little bit about this product or service and how it uses generative AI? And maybe what you'd like librarians to understand about Scopus AI?
Yeah, no, the really fun part, Meg, right before the Charleston conference, we had our North America Library Advisory Board get together in Manhattan. And we actually, matter of fact, the person who created Scopus AI at Elsevier actually demoed the product, and the librarians absolutely loved it. And again, the reason I love it because a librarian's job is to enable the researcher. And this tool, I mean, taking trusted content and the content in Scopus, I mean, is content that is so rigorously vetted and selected by an independent review board of 17 people, the kind of top brilliant minds, you know, across the globe. And so taking that content, applying artificial intelligence on top, focused on that researcher to increase their efficacy of discovery and do it in a really simple, straightforward way. So they could, in a short amount of time, get summarized views of a bunch of abstracts, like right away. For that researcher who's doing interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary work, where they might not have a depth and breadth of knowledge in a different discipline, to be able to use natural language queries to get at what they want. I mean, that's what Scopus AI is all about. And again, to me, you can see my passion is for that researcher and making the researcher as effective as possible. So the cool thing for us, I mean, and this was a fun part. We launched our alpha within 61 days from idea to in the market. So proud of the team. It just reinforces the incredibly smart people. Beta was a month later, and we'll be going to market the beginning of next year. So right down the pike. Yeah.
And it really is. It's so interesting. You talk about that researcher, and I don't know if it's ever been more clear, like these tools and services that are the innovations that are coming into scholarly communication. The researcher doesn't care how the sausage gets made, right? You mentioned it. They just want to throw their question in and get the most relevant information that helps them answer whatever question, right? So certainly discovery is a huge part of what AI can enable, and it's fascinating to see where Elsevier is going with that. And how quickly, holy cow, you've been able to move into that space.
It's impressive. That's why with the earlier comment on traditional, that is not a traditional company who does that. And it puts the big spotlight on how critically important innovation is.
Well, critically important innovation is, but how dedicated the organization is to actually delivering on that promise. So amazing. And watching that space certainly for next year as that product launches and continues to evolve. So
yes.
Great. So we started out with a little bit of background on you, talked a little bit about Elsevier and your role there. Let's turn the spotlight back to you, if you don't mind. So can you talk a little bit about when you're not making the world safe for information dissemination and supporting researchers in your role at Elsevier, what do you like to do with your spare time? Do you have any special hobbies that you can share?
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I have a huge passion for mentoring, and which I do lots of. And it's interesting because it started when I was a young person in business. I was only in my 20s, and I got involved with Big Brother, Big Sister organization and did mentoring of more young teenagers at that point. And that just fueled kind of my passion to, help people figure out who they are, what their strengths are. And, and it's interesting, Meg, because my dad always said to me, make sure whatever you do, you leave big footprints. And I've always felt that through mentoring, that's an opportunity to truly have impact and leave big footprints. So I do lots of that. I do mentoring, not only with people at Elsevier, but people in multiple companies that I've worked for over the years. And then even I get some that come to me through other sources and ask if I mentor. So that takes up a fair amount of time, but I love it. I also sit on a couple of outside boards, which keep me busy outside of Elsevier. But for me, in terms of just other hobbies and things I like to do, I love to read, like an avid reader. My Kindle, matter of fact, my Kindle will be not too far away from me. It goes, I was an early adopter of Kindle because I travel so much and I couldn't stand lugging books around all the time. It was too much with carry-on luggage. But constantly reading, morning, night, it's always how I start the day, how I end the day. And I like to do a mix of both novels, but also nonfiction too, in terms of continuing learning journey, but just also continuing letting your mind relax. Yeah.
So what's one of your more recent favorites, fiction or nonfiction, whatever you've said, that was fantastic.
Yeah, there's, it's funny because I do read a lot. Two recently, one was Lessons in Chemistry, which is now out on a show, but I always prefer reading the book anyway, and absolutely loved it. Of course, being a woman of a certain age and understanding, the challenges women faced, late 50s and the 60s, women scientists. I just thought it was an incredible book for so many reasons. I also loved The Personal Librarian, which is a historical fiction on J.P. Morgan's personal librarian, who masqueraded given the time it was, masqueraded as white, as a Black woman, in order to have that job. And it was just really fun, powerful read. What else? I recently reread, and I very rarely reread a book, but Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you've ever read it, by Viktor Frankl. Yeah, Viktor Frankl is a survivor of Auschwitz, and it's a short book, and it is such a powerful book that it's a good one that you should always have on your shelf from a reread side of the equation.
I have not read the last two. The middle one has been recommended to me several times. So now maybe the universe is telling me I need to pick that up. But also that Man's Search for Meaning too. So put that on the list. Lessons in Chemistry. I mean, it was so many things, but it was funny. She's funny. Like there was so many heavy things in that book, but it was humorous. I mean, yeah, and I think 6:30 is funny. He's funny.
he's funny, and the I think the author called her book something like A Love Letter to Scientists and the Scientific Brain, which automatically piqued my interest when I saw that. Yeah, but no, I'm always looking for book recommendations. Other interesting one, Walter Isaacson. I don't know if you're a big fan, who's done biographies like on Steve Jobs. His recent one on Elon Musk is a fascinating read for just multiple reasons.
Interesting. I read Isaacson wrote The Code Breakers, I think, about Jennifer Doudna and the mRNA research out at Berkeley, I believe. But
yeah, so put all these on your list.
Elon, I'm writing that one down. I'm definitely writing that one down. So okay.
Yeah, big insight to an incredible brain, and very interesting insight.
Yeah, well, an incredible brain and an incredible personality for sure.
Yeah. Big person. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, we are winding down. I have so enjoyed this talk, and thanks so much for sharing some of your professional insights and also your personal with our community. But anything else you'd like to share with the folks who are members of the Charleston Hub community and this group? The floor is yours. Anything you'd like to let them know?
I probably the only thing I would like to let them know is just my thanks and appreciation for this conference. And this conference has been going on such a long time, and keep it going, and I know how difficult it is to pull off a conference of that size and complexity. It truly has an impact, and it really helps continue to build the trust and the collaboration, to my point on how critically important this interconnected ecosystem is, Charleston plays a really important role there. So it's very much appreciated, and Elsevier looks forward every year to being part of it.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And I can say, what you just described is a big driver, the directors group, and certainly the key leadership at Charleston, Leah, Katina, the program committee. That's really their goal. So it's nice to hear that that's the perception, and we're going to keep doing it. So all good there. So
Wonderful.
Judy, thank you so much for joining us today. Certainly, you're leaving some big footprints for those who come after you. But happy holidays to you, and we certainly appreciate your time and your participation and support of Charleston.
Thank you so much, Meg, and hope you have a wonderful holiday too, and an especially wonderful 2024.
There it is. All right. Take good care.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.